steroids for another episode of What the Devil, episode 31. As I say at the beginning of every single podcast, we've got a lot to talk about this week. We do have a lot to talk about this week, because we always do. Transfer window's ending on Friday. We've just lost to Brighton, but mixed opinions about the Brighton loss. About to play Liverpool. International breaks. I don't like the international September. It's September international break. It feels like we start the season, finally get underway, and then it's a week break.
Yeah. Then it feels the same in October as well.
Yeah,
it gets going and then bang.
And then isn't there one in November, I think, as well?
It's dread.
International breaks, not a fan.
No.
But anyway, the big news in the last 48 hours has been out of nowhere. Boyhood United fan Raheem Sterling, who has played for City, played for Liverpool, played for Chelsea, and QPR, but is being linked with United in a swap deal for Sancho. Yeah. So, loan with obligation to buy Jadon Sancho. We've just discovered this while in the middle of the recording thing. Which is, I think, ideal scenario. Ideal scenario.
Yeah, I literally about 40 minutes ago, I was literally saying that is the perfect scenario that I think we can realistically get out of this, and that has exactly happened. Right now, what we don't know is the fee that we're going to get for him. So, depending on the fee, it could either be an excellent deal or it could be an okay deal. But either way, I'm happy. Sancho's is gone because it's an obligation to buy, so it means he's gone. We can cut our losses. He can go and actually just crack on with his career now, and there's not any more of this drama between Ten Hag and Sancho. I'm happy that it's just done, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think earlier on I mentioned having those players in this sort of awkward position within the squad where they are maybe 1 week in the squad, maybe 1 week they're not. We don't know if they're in the plan of the manager and the club. So I'm happy about this because we're getting rid of a player who is, to me, still a good player, but clearly not in the plans for the manager and the club, so we can forget about it, we can move on from it. Yeah. I'm happy for him, but I'm also happy for the club and happy for, Ten Hag.
I think it's also worth saying that, I don't know about you guys, but I don't think this is actually the best outcome for Sancho. Do you know what I mean? Like, in terms of Juventus are obviously a huge club, don't get me wrong, the old lady and everything else, they're a huge club, but in terms of where they're at right now, I would say they're probably, in terms of the way I'm looking at the Serie A, I'm going Inter Milan are the strongest. Then on what they've done this summer, Napoli are for me second. I would then probably go AC Milan and then maybe Juventus. So actually for Sancho, I think he's kind of accepted that he's going to have to move on to a club.
He's got to rebuild himself.
Exactly.
Because he's just he wasn't great at United. He had that 6 months at Dortmund, which I think is saving him at the moment.
Which only was really good in the Champions League.
Yeah, and then the one game that everyone watched was that PSG game where he was brilliant. And that's kind of, he's being saved a little bit by that, I think.
Yeah.
But I think this is... Sancho may have not won with this, but I think it's also one of the best possible outcomes he could have had because it's a new league, which I think he'll be better suited to because he's just not... Right now, he's not suited to the Premier League. We've seen this. I
don't think it ever will be.
The chaos of the Bundesliga and the open spaces in the Bundesliga were good for him. And I think the intricacy and slightly slower play in Italy will also be good for him. And Chiesa is gone. Juventus have a space for him in that team. And I think I have a space on the left wing. I can't really think of who they've got at left wing if it's not Sancho. So there's space for him. There's a fresh start. He can go there. Juventus also, they've wanted him for like 6 months. They wanted him on loan as well. Motta apparently likes him. Their CEO and their sporting director will both like him. Yeah. So I think it's a good scenario for Sancho. Yeah, he's not come out on top in this deal, but he was never going to come out on top of this deal because he shot himself in the foot last year.
To be fair, Motta being there is a good deal for him.
Yeah,
Motta's a good young manager.
It's gonna he's got a shot. He's got a chance here. Yeah. Go and make a name himself in Italy, and I'm sure there might be a sell-on clause in there as well.
Sell-on clause.
Yeah, I've been waiting for us to discover some breaking news on this podcast as we're recording it. 31 episodes in, that has finally come, and then it means Sterling is basically not coming to United. You know, we spoke about it earlier, but Sterling not coming to United. Sancho off to Juventus. That is another. Let's hopefully say 30 mil, etc. in the bank. Yeah. That is also a problem out the way.
Yeah, it's also another step towards balancing out our books to the point where we don't have to worry as much about it next summer, which is huge, I reckon.
Moving on to just some more positive stuff because I think we've had a fantastic window. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the signings United have made, and we're going to include Ugarte in this because it's that's going to, apart from unless he fails his medical or something ridiculous, which I do this every week. Touch wood, he doesn't. we're going to start with the first signing of the summer in Joshua Zirkzee.
Oh yeah, for a second I thought Lenny Yoro, but of course.
No, it's
Zirkzee.
Joshua Zirkzee,
Yeah,
bro.
of
So, well, I'm just going to kind of say out of 10.
I would personally say a 6, you know.
Really?
6 out of 10.
Yeah, only because I'm not his biggest fan. From what I've seen so far, I'm not the biggest fan of him. But, however, I do think we needed a second striker. We can't just go into the season with one striker. But I don't think he'll be at the club for that long. But, yeah, I'm being a bit negative, isn't it?
Yeah.
But, yeah, let's see. Let's see. 6 out of 10 for me.
I'll go 7 out of 10 on the basis that, for me, he's basically a straight Scott McTominay replacement based on what McTominay was for us last season. He'll do it better. More or less the same amount of money between McTominay and Zirkzee, not much in it. And I think he's got potential to be a good signing for us. Not, he's not going to light things up, but I think he's going to be a good signing for us. I'll go 7 out of 10.
I agree. I think it's a 7 out of 10 if people accept the fact right now that he's not like a 30-goal a season striker.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think he ever will be.
No, because I think he's not that kind of player.
No, he's not.
He's a type of player that you do need in your squad, I think. He's a kind of versatile forward who's good with his feet, and he does basically what Anthony Martial had been doing for us. And Anthony Martial hit, I think, 25 goals at one point?
Something like that, yeah.
So it's something that was like 20-25 mark for a couple of seasons.
There was 17.
And also, one thing I really like is his frame. That guy's huge. I know he's 6'3", but when he came on for the first time and then when he came on against Brighton, it kind of took me back a bit. How big that guy is, but also how silky he seems to be.
Yeah.
He seems to be nice. He seems to take things like slowly and deliberately.
Clean.
He's clean.
Technically, he's very good.
He's not Garnacho who played a million miles an hour.
My only thing is,
it's good.
if you're going to play strike for Man United, if you're going to play as a striker, I want you to score goals. So I get it that, I can accept now that he's not a 30-goal a season striker, but then, I don't see that much potential in a striker.
But what if his play style makes us score more goals in general? So let's say him coming on the pitch adds 5 goals to each of our wingers because he collects the ball, he budges the man off and plays Garnacho through. Is that not the same kind of impact?
Yeah, it is, but then also is that taking away goals from someone like Højlund, for example, or whoever that striker is going to be? Yes, you may be adding more goals to your wingers, but if your striker's scoring less goals, then how worth it is that really?
Yeah, true.
But as a squad player, I think it's fine.
Yeah, 6, 7, 7.
Cool.
Next one, Lenny Yoro, who I know you absolutely love, and I know we've been talking about him for months. So Nick, I'll go to you first. Out of 10.
I will go a 9 simply because we overpaid a little bit. I would say the fee could have been a little bit less considering there wasn't really too much competition out there. But listen, he's the kind of player who, if things go well, he can be your centre back for the next 10 years. He can grow with Kobbie Mainoo, grow with Garnacho. So it's a 9 out of 10. I'm really disappointed that he's injured. Really, really disappointed that he's injured. But yeah, for me, it's a 9 out of 10. He'll be a quality centre back for us for years to come, I reckon.
For me, it's a 9.5. I'm going to add a decimal point to it. 9.5 out of 10. The only reason why it's not a 10 is because he clearly had some sort of injury issues. Apparently, anyway, there was an injury that they could see coming, but they didn't really protect it or maybe lower the price for that injury. I don't know. I think we could have been a bit more careful about the whole injury thing. But as an 18-year-old, 18, 19, he wanted to go to Real Madrid. He's at United. Statement signing. I think it's fantastic.
See, I'm tempted to say 10 out of 10 signing
really?
Because of not this case. So I think bringing the player in Lenny Yoro 9 out of 10. But I think also the fact that what we did with that deal so early in the window, how we went about it and everything. I think it was just considering where United were at the beginning of the window for that transfer versus the fact that they got it over the line was just brilliant from everyone involved. Like Barada personally, on his phone, calling him. I'm sure Ashworth and Wilcox were as well. They were serenading this kid.
Yeah.
So I do want to say, because when you add the fact how we acted, what we've paid for, what we'll hopefully get, I'd say it's 10 out of 10 signing.
It's not often that Madrid go for a player and don't get him.
Yeah.
I know he's an 18-year-old, so maybe he wasn't the top of their priority list, but still, when they go for someone, they generally get him. So yeah, agreed.
Mate, they haven't signed another centre back since they missed out on him, because apparently they saw him as such like a one-off thing.
What a shame.
Yeah. And then we'll go to next, the person who technically signed first was Mazwari, who was announced about 15 minutes before Dillet.
Oh,
so
right.
We'll go with Mazwari next out of 10. Yeah. I'm going to start with this one. I think it's a 6.
Okay.
I would say a 6 because I know Wan-Bissaka moved on, and fair enough, I think it's the right decision. But I liked Wan-Bissaka, but I saw him moving on. And Mazwari, he seems like a decent player in the opening games. Against Brighton, he had a couple iffy moments, but again, he's just bedding in. But at the end of the day, he's not starting for us every week because once Luke Shaw's fit, if he stays fit, he doesn't start for us. So I can't really say it's anything higher than a 7. Or I can't go like 7 or above because he's not like a starting player. I don't think anyway.
You know what? I'm tempted to go strong with like an 8, you know?
Really?
Oh,
Yeah, because I think it's one of those signings where it's like, okay, it's not, you know, it's not super exciting. He's not a huge name. He's not going to change the way we play. But I feel like it's just one of those smart, astute signings where you go, okay, he will play 30 games a season. He'll come on for some of those. He'll play some cup games. He'll play some Prem games when Dalot is not fit or fully, or if he's got an injury, he'll come on. I just think it's a nice squad signing is the way I see it. And the fee represents that in my opinion. His wages represent that in my opinion. I think and he's also at a good age, 26, where he's not too young where he's inexperienced, but he's also not too old where he's past his peak. His best years are probably still to come. I think as long as he can stay fit, for me, he might be a 7.58. I like the signing.
Yeah, I was going to say a 7 out of 10 for the Mazraoui signing, and I think, and I'm taking away the fact that Wan-Bissaka's gone, no matter what anyone's opinion of that is, because I don't know how I felt about that. But Mazraoui coming in, what I like about it is that if everyone is fully fit, and that's a big if, with Luke Shaw never fit, at least we have someone who can come off the bench or who can, you know, come on for a cup game or some sort of other competition in the Premier League and will still play to the manager's style, as opposed to having Wan-Bissaka come in and he clearly doesn't fit the system, although he's a very good player. Now we have a player who fits the system, which at this stage of the squad's development is probably a bit more important. And as you said as well, the fact that the fee was it 15 million or a bit less than that?
Less than that. I think it's up to 15.
Yeah, so I think that's a
With
good
add-ons.
signing. I mean, even if it doesn't work out, if he doesn't go on to become the world's best right back or world's best left back, we've only paid 10 to 15 million for him. So yeah, I think it's a good signing.
Yeah,
7
to
out
be
of
fair,
10.
I do see the argument that he's like, it's a floor-raising signing.
Yeah,
like
exactly,
kind of
yeah.
like the average ability in that defensive
Exactly.
line has gone up.
Yeah.
And it instantly helps us play more in the style that Ten Hag wants to play without like when Wan-Bissaka came in for us as even though he had his strengths, he couldn't play the way Ten Hag really wanted him to.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
Next, then, 15 minutes later, was the announcement of 25-year-old centre-back Matthijs de Ligt from...
25 on the day.
Yeah, it was 25.
Yeah.
It was
On the
25th
day.
His
birthday.
birthday.
Oh, what day that would have been.
Yeah, literally.
Of de Ligt from Bayern Munich for, I think it's about, 38 million or something.
Plus, add-ons.
Plus a couple of add-ons.
It's always plus
I'm
add-ons.
going with an 8 out of 10 de Ligt. Just because, like, I am so happy with the signing. I remember when we talked a while ago about brought Euro in, do we then get Branthwaite or de Ligt? I was more on the side of de Ligt. And I still am, and I think that is a fantastic, amazing signing. It's just I want to wait to see if he gets injured. If he stays fit, okay, if he gets a couple injuries, you know, you expect a player to maybe get a bit of an injury some here or there in the season. If he stays fit, that goes up to a 9 or maybe even a 10 for me, depending on how good he is. But for now, I'm going to say an 8 because that getting him in. So let's say Euro is Varane's placement for the future, blah, blah, blah. We then just signed de Ligt, who will immediately become our first choice centre back. Alongside Lisandro Martinez, especially considering Euro's injury. I think if he stays fit, 9 out of 10, but for now, 8 out of 10, because he's going to be so impactful.
Yeah.
He's so like loud and commanding, and he's looked good when he's come on as well.
Yeah.
Some nice passing, some good tackles, some good headers, some really strong headers actually. But yeah, just waiting to see on the injury front.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I would say a 9 out of 10. The only reason why it's not a 10 out of 10 signing for me is because I think we should have maybe prioritised a left-footed centre-back more, because now we've got 6 centre-backs in the team and only one of them is actually left-footed, which is a little bit of a concern to me because we know that Ten Hag likes to play left-footed centre-backs in the left centre-back spot, and if Martinez gets injured, which he sometimes does, who's going to play there? Yeah, I know de Ligt could maybe play there, or even Maguire or someone else, but I think we should have gone for a left-footed centre-back. But having said that, I think de Ligt's a fantastic player, hence why it's a 9 out of 10. And he's a player that I've always wanted, as I've said on this podcast before. So, yeah, I think he definitely raises the level of our centre-backs to a high level. We can say we've got a good set of centre-backs now, and he's definitely a starter in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll go an 8 for a lot of the same reasons why you guys just said. Really good player, good quality, lots of experience, a leader as well. He, for me, is like a lot better Maguire, if you like, sort of similar a little bit. But the only reason why I won't go above at 8 is because one of the reasons why I liked the Lenny Yoro signing is because he, for me, is a defender who is a bit more comfortable running towards his own goal. In terms of if we play a high line and we press really high and they beat our press and they play a ball through and someone's running in our goal, I think Lenny Yoro is a lot better at tracking back, running back, and putting in a challenge or just getting there in time. I think De Ligt is a little bit on the slower side in that way, in terms of his recovery pace isn't amazing. And I think that alongside Lisandro Martinez, who also isn't the quickest, it would have been nice to have had a centre-back who is a bit quicker. So that's the reason why I wouldn't go higher than an 8. Also, what you said as well about the left-footed, not having another left-footed centre-back, that's also another reason. But overall, very happy with the signing.
I think the recovery pace is so important in this day and age. You see it with other teams. Someone like Saliba as well. Yeah, I mean, I think it was on the weekend. He did it when he was playing for Arsenal. They got caught out. He managed to run back, make that challenge. I agree completely with what you said. The likes of Maguire, the likes of Evans, Lindelof, De Ligt, they're not able to do that, but Yoro is. And yeah, maybe it would have been nice to have a bit of a faster centre-back who can make that recovery. Like Van der Ven as well, actually.
Van der Ven.
So I think you can't compare any of centre-back's pace to Van der Ven, man. He's
Van der Ven
is stratosphere.
Van der Ven is like up there, might be one of the quickest in the whole league. Like, in terms of wingers, strikers.
His assist the other day.
He just kept running. He just kept running.
It's insane.
Straight line.
No, they've got a real talent.
They've got a real talent. And I've just thought something quickly that I want to bring up as well when we spoke about kind of De Ligt and Yoro and stuff. The Yoro injury, as much as it's definitely a shame, I'm not overly bothered by it because there are some silver linings, I think, with this. In that he's not starting right now. Obviously, he's injured, but it means that there's no pressure on him. Since when he signed, obviously there was a lot of spotlight on. This kid's come to England. He played 45 minutes against Rangers. He played 30 minutes against Arsenal before he came off, and people I think were making comms with him or whatever. And then now all the spotlight's gone, right? And United, and you'll have noticed that there's no press around him. United aren't really doing anything around him. He'll come back in, I think, play when the Europa League's up and kicking. Like I said, he'll be back hopefully by the end of October. When the Europa League's up and kicking, there's a few Europa League games. There's a few. Our run before Christmas isn't that bad as well. I took a look at it the other day. And he gets a few months, I guess, to acclimatise. He seems to have made friends with Mainu. There's a couple of videos of them like joking around, and you've seen the one about
so slow.
Yeah. And they're getting the cab.
And it's really not like when Mainu took until November to come into the team, and he was able to then come in when kind of the headlines had already been made surrounding some other players, and Mainu just came in, slotted in, and played. I think it'll be a bit similar with Yoro. I really hope it's a bit similar with Yoro because he'll just kind of come in. There'll be noise everywhere as there always is. And he can kind of like come in under the radar, play a couple games here and there, and then we'll see.
Yeah. Obviously, I do have a slight fear that, I just hope it's not going to be one of those sort of players where they get a reoccurring injury. I hope this injury doesn't come back again.
It's not a muscle injury though. So those injuries tend to be like with Shaw. He's never since Shaw broke his leg. As far as I can remember, he's not had another bone injury. It's all been muscle. And muscle injuries are ones that constantly reoccur. He fractured his foot and then got it repaired. And it's a similar one to the Martinez. I think the injury Martinez got. Martinez surgery went wrong. Well, I think that was a bit complete, but he seems obviously, hopefully, it's fine. He's got loads of recovery. So, like with Mainu as well, I think he fractured or broke his ankle. Had his surgery, I believe, and then came back. Same with Ahmad. So hopefully, I'm doing this again. Touch words. He's fine. But I just wanted to touch on that point. It just came to my head. And then last one on the assumption United's fifth signing of the summer, Manuel Ugarte. There has been a bit of, say, discourse around it. Some people are saying it's by all accounts it seems he was United's guy since the beginning of the summer, like for a month, for 6 weeks, for 2 months. United didn't bid for any other midfielder. They were interested, but as far as I think like Ornstein and everyone said, United are like, he's a midfielder of the future. We're only going for him. We're gunning for him the whole time, and that's caused a bit of mixed emotion from the fan base. I'm finding this slightly hard to judge. I'm just going to say 6 for now, sit on the fence, because admittedly I don't know too much about him. I've read some of his interviews and watched a couple of interviews that he's done, and he seems like mentality-wise, he's there. He's a dog. He's a fighter. As I said a couple of weeks ago, he's like Ander Herrera-esque, Rojo-esque. He's a fighter, which I love. 10 out of 10 for that.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to say 6 at the moment because it's another midfielder. Great, fantastic. We needed it. But from what I've read, some people aren't too sold on it.
Yeah, I would also give the signing a 6 out of 10. I think one thing that's factual is that we definitely needed a centre defensive mid. With Casemiro's performances last season, Collier not quite looking ready to play in top flight football yet. We needed a defensive midfielder. It's just on one hand, I look at him and I think this is a player who's reckless, like Casemiro again, and maybe a bit too rash for Ten Hag's style and how Man United should be playing. But then on the other hand, when you look at the defensive midfield market, there's not many out-and-out defensive midfielders at the moment that we could sign. So I understand us going for it. I think the fee seems a little bit higher for him, but he is young as well. So hopefully, as he comes into the Premier League, he can drop the rashness. So why can't we have a player like Rodri or Fabinho or Kante or Fernandinho who can defend the midfield but not be so rash? And
I don't think there are really any out there.
That's the problem.
Market,
yeah.
Really, like the market is dry.
Yeah, that's the problem. So yeah, I think I'll take the signing at this stage. If there were better options, I'd rather the better options, of course.
Yeah. I would go for a 7. Based on the fact that I think, like what you just said there, in terms of what's available on the market, I think he was probably one of the better, if not the best options that we could have gone for. I think that out of possession, he is an instant improvement on what Casemiro is now. In terms of being able to cover ground, win challenges, I think he'll be very similar to Casemiro actually in terms of what you said, in terms of his rashness. I just hope that sometimes, the fact that he's 23, hopefully he can be coached to be a bit calmer, hold his position a little bit more, don't lunge into challenges like we've seen Casemiro do. The downside of Ugarte for me is the fact that on the ball he is not amazing. Like, for example, some of the stuff that Casemiro does on the ball I actually think is quite underrated. The pass that he picked out for Bruno Fernandes's chance against Fulham, that's an elite level pass.
Oh,
it's
it's
a
pass.
brilliant pass.
Ugarte's not picking out that pass.
Ugarte doesn't have that. But the reason why I go for a 7 is because I think that he has got the physical capabilities to do it. And I hope that, like I said, because he's 23 years old, he can mature, he can be coached and be molded into a good CDM in terms of not picking up the ball, driving forward, picking out a pass that sets up your winger, but just sitting in front of the fence, getting a pass, playing it 5 yards here, 5 yards there, calm it down a little bit, and then out of possession, do what you're good at. Yeah. I think if the deal was if the money we paid for him was a little bit less, I would maybe even be tempted to go to an 8. But because we paid quite a hefty fee for him, I'll go 7. I'm excited to see him come in.
He's the second most expensive signing this summer.
Yeah, because we've been, the business has been good this season though. I'll say that as well.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say as well is when you look at our current starting 11 midfield, I think we can all agree it's Casemiro, Mainu and Bruno, right? Bruno has the energy, but he should be using that energy going forward more than going back. Mainu at times looks a bit slow, and we can see he gets tired around the 60th minute mark, especially with all the minutes recently he's been playing. Well. Yeah, and then Casemiro, we know the legs aren't quite there. So I think having the option of Ugarte to come in for Casemiro, it adds energy into our midfield, and we often need that, especially with the high line that we play. You mentioned earlier on us sometimes running back towards the goal. Mainu against Brighton, as much as I love the kids, when he was running back, he looks very, very slow. I think there was one point the referee overtook him, and that shouldn't be happening. And I don't see Ugarte letting that happen. So, yeah, I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So maybe a 6 borderline 7.
Yeah, maybe borderline 7.
6.5.
Yeah.
And then we'll touch on the sales as a whole. So this doesn't include people we've let go for free, but the sales. Genuinely 9 out of 10 for me. Just as an overall the sales, I think we've been so smart and we've maximised what we can get. Because yes, you can maybe say, like we've touched on before, you could probably get a little more, maybe if you spent more time on the deals, get a bit more for many of the players, like maybe a bit more for Mabry, a bit more for Greenwood, blah, 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 maybe a bit more for Wan-Bissaka. But I think we've negotiated them so well, considering how many players needed to go. We've sold 9 players, I think, raised so far, like prior to, because obviously McTominay's not gone through yet, Sancho we don't know yet. It's about 65 million. Sancho and McTominay go through, and then Mesbury, that's just been announced as well, actually. So that takes it to... We could raise up 130 million this summer if, like, Sancho was to leave for the 35-40 mil, which is amazing. I don't think we've ever raised that much in a single window, even when we sold Ronaldo for 85.
It's probably the only big signing we made, big sell we made.
It's that, and then Lukaku, and then Dan James as like our 3 biggest sales prior to this window. And also it's the add-ons, the buyback clauses, sell-on clauses, all of this. I think 9 out of 10, purely because there's a couple of players that I wish who had also gone. And maybe fees could have been a little higher, but I think 9 out of 10. This has been the best-selling window I've seen us have in a decade.
Yeah, I think I would agree with a 9, especially if Sancho goes as well for a good fee. And as you said, McTominay. I think in the past few seasons, we usually have, you've got your first team squad, it's quite tight-knit, but then you also have these players in the middle who keep going out on loan. They're old enough to be in the first team, but sometimes they play youth games. And then you have the academy who, we've got some good talent there who should be working their way through up to the first team. So I think getting rid of those players in the middle, the dead wood as we call it, has been something that we've been meaning and we should have done over the last few years. Someone like Hannibal, in a way, you can see he's got some talent there, but are you going to play him or not? If you don't want him at United, let's get rid of him. I'm happy we did that. Kambuala, he only played 1 season and he barely played, but I'm happy that we haven't thought, let's loan him out, let's see what he's like. We've watched him last season, thought, right, he's not going to make it at United. Let's get rid of him now and get the 10 million that we can. Van der Beek, we finally got rid of. Yeah, maybe we could have got a bit more money for him. But overall, I think I would say if we can get Sancho gone for the 30 to 40 million mark, I would say it's a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I think that if you take context out of the situation, I think you could go, oh, well, actually, it was a little bit underwhelming because, for example, you sold McTominay, who had a brilliant last season, for the same price that Arsenal sort of sold Smith Rowe, who's barely played for 2.5 years. I think there's some moments like that where you can look at it and go, all right, well, we haven't got enough money for Palestri, for example. Wasn't he in the Copa America team of the tournament? Should be getting more money for him. So I think if you take context out of it, some transfers might look underwhelming. But with context, with the mess that the Glazers left them, the ridiculous wages, the contract extensions to players who should not have been getting them, and when you take into consideration that we just never sold well at all, it's a 10 out of 10. It is a complete 10 out of 10. In their first, they've been... Bro, Ashraf turned up more or less at the beginning of the transfer window. Omar Barada turned up at the beginning of the transfer window. The work they've done over the last month and a half, it's an absolute 10-10. And these deals, like we've just said, with the sell-on clauses and add-ons, sorry, you said with the sell-on clause add-ons, is so smart because the likelihood is Palestri will get a decent move at some point. There's a little 2, 3, 5 mil extra. Hannibal will probably get another move at some point. There's a little 5 mil extra. All of these over time will add up as well. So I think it's really good. The one thing I will, however, mention is that I am quite upset that Kambuala's gone. I really liked Kambuala.
Really?
I did. In terms of, I just think he wouldn't have been a starter for us. And if he would have been happy, and maybe he wouldn't have been happy to not be a starter. So maybe that's why they felt like they had to get rid of him. And then the fee was decent. But I just really liked the kid. I really liked him. Every time I watched him, his quality was good, but also just the way he was. Every time he made a challenge, you get the crowd going, and I love that about him. So that I was a little bit upset about.
The thing is he was never going to get any minutes. He got minutes last year because we had 5 defensive injuries.
That's the thing. Yeah,
I'm working. I know it happened last season, but I'm working on the assumption that that's just not going to happen again.
Yeah.
So many freak problems, and he just wasn't going to get any minutes.
Yeah. At the moment, we have 6 centre backs unless we sell Lindelof.
Which he should go.
He should, but having Kambuala in that mix as well, even making it to the bench. So all you're going to do over the next season, if it was to keep him, is actually just reduce his value and maybe end up letting him go for free or ended up letting him go for next to nothing.
I think it was United taking the chance because I don't think his value is going to be that high if he was to stay at United over the next 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And just lastly, I'm going to touch on also the free transfers. So obviously we let go of 4 players basically: Varane, Forson, Martial, and then Williams, and then didn't renew Amrabat. Right. I think all of those good decisions. I don't have any faults with any of those. I originally wasn't a fan of letting Varane go, but with hindsight, the fact that we got Yoro and Dalit in now, I don't really think about it anymore.
Yeah, I think it all makes sense. I think the one we could say maybe Forson because he's had first team experience. Could you have figured out a way where you could sign him on a contract extension earlier on in the season and then sell him for a few million in the sum,
It's
but
a
it's
minor
not.
thing,
It is
yeah.
a minor. Yeah,
It's
it's
a
a
minor
minor.
thing.
I'm all happy with the outcome, especially when you consider the amount of money Martial was on, the amount of money Varane was on.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money off our wages.
We've got so much of our wage bill this summer.
Yeah.
Over $1 million a week, I think.
Mad.
Like net.
Yeah.
Including the people who've just signed.
Yeah, I
Great
think
stuff.
the good thing about the transfers that we let go of is now there's a bit more clarity as to what does the future for Man United look like. You know that, all right, Ahmad is he's the future, he's part of the future. De Ligt, Euro, these players are part of the future. Martial, every season it was always a thing of, is he going or not? With Varane, we could see he was getting old and he needed to go. With Forsen as well, we came in and we just thought, okay, is this someone that the manager actually sees in his plans, or is this someone that needs to go? He didn't really do much when he came on in those games. So I'm happy that we've gotten rid of these free transfers and we can move on. We can move on from the Martial story and the Varane story. And as you said, most importantly, the wage bill has definitely been significantly reduced. So that's pretty good. Happy with that.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so well done, Ineos.
Well done.
Well done, Ineos.
Well done,
Let's go.
Ineos.
Let's have it.
And next up, we have Liverpool at home, Old Trafford. So, immediately, your reaction was one of dread. You seem all right about it. You see, I'm so up for this.
Yeah.
I think this might just be the position that I've decided I'm going to take for this year, as much as I possibly can do it. I'm up for this, because I have more trust in my squad now than I did last season. I had trust in them last season. I was up for games last season. We did well. Sorry, season before last, we did well. Won the Carabao Cup, finished third in the league, had some good wins. Last season was a travesty that I've forgotten and erased from my memory, bar the final day. But I'm up for this. But there is a question of a couple of changes. So against Fulham, thank you, against Fulham and against Brighton, it was the same team, starting 11. But there's a couple of things which suggest changes might happen. And the first one I bring up was Maguire. So Maguire was great against Fulham. I think we all agree on that. Against Fulham, he was great. And then against Brighton, he kind of had a couple of Maguire moments. But something where you just kind of go, why has he done that? Like, for example, the goal when he let it go, Brighton's first goal, he let it go past him and he could have kicked it out, and then 4 seconds later doesn't block the cross, and then Welbeck's free. And I know there's Martinez is also to blame for that, but Martinez isn't not going to start. So I was going to pose the question of, is this where we see Matthias de Ligt's first start for United?
I mean, I think it just really we don't really know where his fitness levels are quite at. Obviously, he had about 10 minutes against Fulham, 15 minutes against Fulham, similar amount against Brighton. So to suddenly go from that to starting the game is, we don't know where his, like I said, we don't know where his fitness levels are at. So I think it's a case of, if you believe he can play 60, 65 minutes, go for it. Especially because it's against Liverpool, give him that chance on his first start to really, with the home crowd as well, show what he's about, bully a few players. That'll be good for him. I just think be wary, because we know his injury record isn't the very best. So if he's not fully ready, I wouldn't risk it just because it's a big game. I would rather him be fit for the next few months to come than we throw him in a bit too early. But I would love to see him start, because I just think with Maguire, even though he has, like we said, a good performance against Fulham, in those moments when he makes mistakes against Brighton, you know what annoys me is that he's then turning around moaning, saying, I couldn't get the ball. Just don't moan, just crack on with it. Just crack on and say, let's go boys, we go again. But yeah, I would like to see him start. If he's fit, why not? 100%. I'm
a bit conflicted on this, actually, because I think on one hand, Maguire doesn't really deserve to be dropped yet. I completely agree, Martinez is not going to be dropped. But I think Martinez might have had a worse game than Maguire against Brighton. I know the goal that we conceded, Maguire should have gotten rid of it, as you said. However, overall, I mean, against Fulham, I thought he was our best player. If not, then maybe at least one of our best players. And I thought against Brighton, overall, he wasn't too bad. It was just that goal, that moment was not a good moment for him. So I think it's a bit too easy and unfair to drop Maguire for this game, especially as a player who knows the Liverpool fixture. He knows what this game means. He played against Liverpool last season as well. But on the other hand, I also think, as you said, De Ligt eventually has to come in. And maybe this last game before the international break is a good chance for him to come in and actually start. And then, we know he's going to have a few weeks away from Man United to rest a bit more during the international break. So, I mean, for me, I would actually just keep Maguire in, out of fairness, squad morale and happiness. But really and truly, eventually, we do need to start seeing De Ligt play for the club.
I think this is the fantastic game to start De Ligt. I feel like this is like from obviously like De Ligt's his reputation of being, you know, just he's the guy who's up for everything, big challenges, gets cracking with. I think this is a fantastic picture to start De Ligt because I'm at least semi-confident in the game. I know Liverpool have looked great so far, but I also think we've looked better than some people have been saying.
100%.
I really think we've looked good. We've looked organised. There is like, as we spoke about just before we started filming, there is a big question to do with our pressing. Do we or do we not? But De Ligt's not going to be part of that, really, pressing-wise. You know, they're the back line, they're the last line of defence for the goalkeeper.
He'll be where Maguire would be anyway.
Yeah, and I think it is such a good game to introduce De Ligt to Old Trafford in, because I've got faith that he's a fantastic centre-back. So I don't think if we start him, there's much chance of something going wrong. And as you guys talked about his fitness.
Touch wood.
Yeah, a touch wood again. I don't think there's much chance of stuff going wrong. But I've completely lost what I was going to say. The fitness. He has had about 3.5, 4 weeks training now.
Yeah.
It's not like he's just signed or he's had 3 days training. He's been training for weeks with his team. I'm sure they've played behind closed doors games, first team versus second team stuff, 90 minutes. He's come on a couple times. And he was training in pre-season as well with Bayern before he signed for that. So he's had like 4 or 5 weeks of training. He's going to be, hopefully, I mean, he's professional football, he's going to be fit. So I don't see that as an issue. And I think if we're going to see him start sooner or later, I know I said last week we should play Maguire against Brighton. He did, and I wasn't impressed. I think we should just start De Ligt because De Ligt and Martinez is what we're going to have. So now Maguire had a performance that's kind of put me on edge a bit. We may as well just do it now.
Yeah, I think to me the question isn't really as much about his fitness as, you know, the media and everyone makes it out to see, because you've made some good points that he's trained for a few weeks now and he had pre-season with Bayern Munich. I think it's more about being fair to Maguire, and also secondly, the occasion. You're facing Liverpool at Old Trafford. To have your first start for Man United in that game can go one of two ways, and you're confident that, like, you know, nothing's going to go wrong. I think if something does go wrong in this game, it's going to be an awful start to him. I think it can be quite embarrassing. So it's a tough decision for the manager to make. But
any
worrying
game can be like that.
Yeah.
Like we had the game against Brighton where we lost 2-1. The Fulham game was really tight. Mazwari started and he was great. Like there is no such thing as guaranteed points in the Premier League,
true.
no matter who you play. De Ligt will have a tough game on his first start because he's playing in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Even good squads like Crystal Palace, example, who finish 10th every year, they have to spend millions and they have to buy quality players to finish 12th.
But it's the occasion. It's not just the difficulty of the game, but the occasion.
Is playing Liverpool at Old Trafford not what you crave for as a top level?
And also he's been playing at the top level with the biggest occasion. So I think he'll be alright. For me, it's just fitness. That's literally all it is for me. If he's fit, he plays, I reckon. Yeah, and I think Ten Hag probably sees it.
I agree with that, and I think he is fit. Like, I don't think he wouldn't be fit because he's like. You say Maguire, but I reckon De Ligt should start.
We'll see.
And the other person, obviously, there's a lot of. It's two people really, but it's the same point. Is Garnacho and Rashford.
Yeah.
So Rashford's as we spoke before the thing, he's in my FPL because I thought for 7 million that's a fantastic bargain. But as you mentioned, Nick, 2 weeks ago, it just feels like it's not like he could get back to where he was. It just feels like he's, obviously I don't know, but and I'm not a physiological mastermind or whatever, but it just feels like he can't do what he did before. Before, when like he can break through on goal if he's 30 yards from goal, but if he's starting his run on the halfway line, he can't do it. He is tracking back sometimes, but sometimes he's then not tracking back, and it feels a little bit like he just is now much more physically restricted than he used to be. Yeah. And it feels like it's not going to go up again from here. Whereas Garnacho has been involved in goals, or goals who have either been ruled out or not been ruled out against City, against Fulham, and now against Brighton with his goal that was ruled out, which is unfair, but fair but unlucky, sorry.
Yeah.
So, do you drop Rashford and start Garnacho against Liverpool?
I think the the Rashford fan and supporter in me tells me that we just start him. Honestly, that's that. Because the way I see it is not that he can't necessarily make those runs forward or, you know, beat his man and keep going like he should have done against Brighton. It's not that he can't do it, but I think it's a mental thing, because in pre-season I thought, oh, Rashford looks good. He looks so light on his feet. He was skipping past players. And then sometimes he's literally, all he's got is grass in front of him and he doesn't want to attack the grass. So, you know, that confuses me, but I don't think it's that he's lost any of his ability. I think it's a mental thing. I think it's a confidence thing, and he needs a goal. He needs a goal or two to just get going. And I don't think dropping Rashford is going to bring the best out of Rashford in the long term. However, I also do understand that by not dropping Rashford, you're also, you know, hindering and slowing down the development of someone like Garnacho, maybe Ahmad, who don't start when Rashford does. So it's a tough one, but I think give Rashford maybe this one last game to start, and if he doesn't perform well against Liverpool, then we drop him and we bring Garnacho on. Just my last point is that against Brighton, I know Ahmad scored, so this is going to sound maybe borderline stupid. He scored, but I actually don't think Ahmad had a good game against Brighton. So I think dropping Ahmad for Garnacho is something that the manager could potentially consider. But I mean, at the end of the day, the main thing is goals and assists. Ahmad has got a goal, so he would also argue that he should start. I think for this Liverpool game, Rashford on the left, Ahmad on the right, Garnacho comes on at half-time if it's not working.
Yeah, I think we're in such a tough place with Rashford right now, because in my eyes, Rashford has more or less become an in-possession final third player. And that is more or less the only positive thing that's coming out of Rashford right now. And even in some moments, he's not taking his chances. Yeah. He's not making the right final pass. He's not making the best decisions. I think overall, his work on the ball is actually better than what a lot of people are making out right now. I still think even some of those passes that he sprays to Ahmad on the right wing or to Garnacho, like he did in the FA Cup where Kobe got his goal, that started from Rashford spraying out that pass. So I still think his on the ball work is better than what people make out. But the problem with Rashford is that out of possession, there's no way to sugarcoat it. He is dreadful. Like, I mean, he's really, really poor out of possession. And I don't just mean in terms of he can't run, in terms of he doesn't have the endurance to keep going. I said it before, I think he's too heavy. I think his build isn't made for someone to keep going, to keep pressing. I don't just mean that. But I also mean he makes bad decisions in the press sometimes. He doesn't always understand. For example, Mason Mount, he understands the pressing triggers so well. And that's why he is in the starting lineup right now. That's why he's leading it right now in terms of when he knows when to go. Rashford doesn't. And there's times where, you know, when Rashford is making those darting runs going back to almost try to prove to us that he's still got it in him, a lot of those times he's making those darting runs backwards because of the mistake that he's made prior in terms of his positioning is off. That's why that pass has gotten through. So I think his off-the-ball work is dreadful, and I don't think there's any way to sugarcoat it. But I also at the same time feel like, and I've said this before, when he's in form, he's our best attacking winger. He's arguably our best goal scorer when he's in form, and I think that Erik ten Hag sees him as the player who could get us 25, 30 goals a season like he did a few years ago. But it's just becoming hard because when you're not putting away your chances, when you're not creating chances, it's really hard to keep backing him, to keep starting. However, I go back to what you said, and I actually agree. I think in this game, we potentially could see Ahmad being dropped. Garnacho comes in, because I just think that if Erik ten Hag feels like Liverpool will press us high and that there's space in behind, he'll want Garnacho and Rashford running onto it. So I think there is a possibility that actually Ahmad gets dropped.
Would you consider the idea of Rashford starting as our number 9 and Garnacho on the left, Ahmad on the right? Because then you have that focal point that we've been missing in the last 2 games, and then you've also got Ahmad and Garnacho on both sides who can serve Rashford as well.
I think he still wouldn't be a focal point, but I don't hate the idea actually. I don't hate the idea because I just think if you're gonna try hurt Liverpool in terms of, like I just said, use the space they leave in behind, that's a perfect way to hurt them. Yeah. Ahmad, Garnacho, Rashford running at you, that's dangerous for any defence.
So. If we don't press, then I think it's a good idea. If we do press, then I don't want Rashford leading the line. Because, so Mason Mount, we don't know if he's injured or not. Ten Hag said he came off slightly precautionary. Xerxes, we have no idea if he's going to start or not. I would guess he probably won't start because he's not started the last 2 games, and he's come off the bench and he's had an impact. Where he obviously scored against Fulham and then against Brighton. I think he was all right against Brighton, to be fair.
He didn't have too much impact.
It was fine, yeah. But I think starting Rashford through the middle may be a decent idea if we don't press. But if we do press, it cannot be Rashford. And if Mason Mount's injured, then it will probably be Xerxes, is what I reckon. Yeah.
There's also, as well, and I know you mentioned it earlier, but we had this discussion before in terms of, does Erik ten Hag trust his press to go full blazing at Liverpool? Because under Slot, under Slot, they have actually been building up the back a bit more than Klopp's Liverpool did. So it would be interesting to see if Ten Hag really trusts his press to really go for it against Liverpool.
Yeah, I reckon we didn't really press against City as far as I remember in the Community Shield. To the extent that we have done against Fulham and Brighton, I think it'll be the same. I think kind of like because Liverpool lost like their back line are technically great. Alisson's technically great.
But you think it'll be the same in terms of press?
No, I think it'd be the same as what we did against Man City, which was less aggressive pressing, being a bit tighter. Yeah. And finally, score predictions. Against Liverpool.
I'm nervous.
I'm saying 2-1 win, United.
Wow. I'm going to say a 2-2 draw.
2-2 draw.
Yeah.
Go on, Nick.
I'll go 3-2 win.
3-2 win United.
Yeah.
That's big call.
Not sure about it, but I'll say it anyway.
Hey man, be positive, be confident. We can't affect the game.
No.
Yeah.
Touch wood.
Like the fourth time on this show.
Yeah. I get superstitious, man.
Breaking news. Owen song. Sancho to Juventus.
What?
Really?
No way.
Oh wow, yeah.
Oh wow. No way.
Okay.
Juventus and Man United have an agreement in place for a loan with an obligation to buy for Jadon Sancho, the player
you said.
in the move. There you go. Right, so what we just spoke about half an hour ago on the podcast, loan with an obligation to buy it. Sterling, nada. Not happening anymore.
No way. Obligated.
That's crazy.
You spoke it into existence. It was a tactic.
You really spoke it into existence.
Big up, Nick.
Let's go. I wonder for how much though. That's the big thing there.
It's gonna if it's agreed now, I reckon Juventus have caved more than United, because if United cave into later demands, then it'll be later on. Like so, I'll start that one again. If it had been later on in the window, I think it would be United going, okay, fine, we'll take the 25 mil. But I think this is now Juventus going, we've had the Chiesa money. Yeah. We're just going to give. Hopefully, it's about 30. Upwards of 30. Upwards of 30. I'm fine with. Thank you everyone for watching this slightly chop and change episode of What the Devil. We are all very much looking forward to the Liverpool game. You think we're going to draw, you think we're going to win. I know we're going to win. Touch wood! Thank you very much for watching and we'll see you next week.